Welcome everyone. We're here for another Obsidian Office Hours, kicking off October, and so let's kick off as we have a new format for those who might have missed the last one, where we're gonna start off by talking about some Obsidian updates, as far as like what's been going on, any new releases, and sort of like the roundup of things that might be interesting for people to know about. So let's go ahead and start off with. Let's talk about releases and what's coming. Let me switch over to live screen. All right. This thing. Boop, 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 boop. Switch. Okay. I think. Okay. Nope. Shrink that a bit. So clearly I had done some work on the build with Benzene, and it's been a little while for the Obsidian. But, okay. Now we should be good. How's it going, Thesis? Good to see ya. Alright, so looks like that resolution is okay for everyone. And we are good to go. Hey, it's Jacob. Man, good to see you all. And yeah, excited to be here to do some Obsidian chat and some updates. And yeah, let's kick it off, shall we? So let's talk about what's kind of coming as far as the insider build when it comes to Obsidian. And so it looks like we have actually two minor releases coming down. And they're, interestingly enough, they're both marked as insider build. Although I would lead me to believe 17 is probably the latest insider build. And hold, let me make sure this is muted. Okay, great. Okay, so as far as kind of what's interesting, basically it's been mostly bug fixes, I would say. If you want to look at the changelog, please feel free to. But the one feature I found pretty interesting, sorry, I lost my train of thought because I looked at the chat. All right, Captain Jack, I see your question. You're looking for help with Excel. This is not necessarily an Excel channel, but honestly, I'd be curious to see what your problem is, because there's a good chance something that you're talking about, your issue, may have broader implications on other tools. So if you want to, Josh. Oh, wait, what? Here I am being serious, thinking like, well, maybe there's a macro or something we can build to solve Josh's problem. Well, thanks a lot, Josh. In the meantime, it's all good. It's all good. Trolling is totally fair game when it comes to the stream. And just, yes, it's all good. So as far as the one thing I think in particular that I found interesting when it comes to the new sort of like a new feature, quote unquote, with Obsidian, is that one of the things I found is that when I'm going through my navigation, especially because I'm a paying user, so in other words, so let's see, if I open up a new note and I create like my sandbox note, you'll see that it opens side by side. Well, sometimes I accidentally close the wrong one. So let's say I go ahead and close sandbox note. The only way for me to get back to it in the past was to actually go ahead and just like actually type the command to open it. But what they're bringing into Obsidian, which honestly I think for most of us is basically native behavior that we're used to when it comes to working in the browser, is the ability to actually reopen the close tab. So if I hit Command-Shift-T, that will actually reopen the last closed note. And for me, this might seem like a small quality of life improvement, but a pretty big deal, at least on my end, from like just being able to flow through ideas better and then instantly sort of basically undo the closing of a tab. So love the fact that they allow us to do that now. But otherwise, mainly just some bug fixes across a couple different plugins. Again, I'm not gonna on this stream, I'm not gonna cover like an exhaustive list, just because that would basically be the whole stream, and I don't think you want me reading the changelog to you. So the other thing is I also do sort of like a highlights from Eleanor's Obsidian Roundup, which is an email newsletter. So to show you just, let me just give a little bit of a visual here. So if you go to obsidianroundup.org, so Eleanor Connick, who's one of the moderators, and honestly, she's great. She does basically an email newsletter. If you haven't seen her stuff before or want to basically get the latest scoop as far as what's happening in the community, it's great. So just to show you like the kind of things that are in the newsletter, you'll see that she talks about the various talks coming out, what's happening within the community, regards to plugin news and all these different things, updates, betas. I mean, and even things like as far as like for plugin developers, there's like resources regarding that, and even people who are requesting to like have plugins made or need help with something. Like this newsletter is amazing. Yes, Jimena. Yes, found it. Perfect. So Eleanor's wonderful. I honestly like subscribe, and then if you can spare, I think you can also sponsor you can support the newsletter financially as well. But again, I'm not going to read all of that. I think if you want like the deep dive, I'd love to let you all do it. But my pick of the week from her roundup is a resource for plugin developers, which I'll go ahead and drop in the chat. Y'all are going to be asking, so let me drop it in the chat first. And then let me drop this actually in the agenda of resources so I can get better at posting the resources in YouTube later on. And so what's great about this is basically what I would like to have done if I had copious amounts of time, because I've learned that I'm sure we've all learned over time, I am very optimistic about the things I'd love to do, and then the time that's there to actually do it and the fires that end up erupting often end up being a bit distracting. But this is basically the unofficial guide to developing plugins for Obsidian. And the reason this is very exciting is because it's actually written a bit more like a tutorial. So this means that we can actually go through, we can actually read, like figure out what's going on, how you build the plugin, right? Development workflow as far as understanding these things. And they explain the anatomy of a plugin. Like this is great. I could have used this. And actually I probably will be using it. And so I love the fact that they've, it looks like I'm going to give credit to Marcus at this point, since the domain is marcus.se. And it's just great to see them actually spend the time to explain what's going on, especially because this is using the JavaScript class syntax, which I think a lot of us aren't as familiar with as developers. We're using like standard JavaScript as far as like functional programming and that stuff. So, if you are looking to ever build a plugin, now you actually have a guide that can actually better walk you through those things. And to be honest, again, one of those like North Star dreams, but Obsidian course, Obsidian plugin course, all things that I'd love to eventually do to like get people more acclimated to what's in the ecosystem, but one thing at a time. So this is my pick of the week for the roundup. And with that, let's go ahead and switch gears, because I have lately been getting sort of more questions regarding different things that I do in my workflow when writing notes in Obsidian. And so what I thought I tried to be better about is actually capture those questions within these Obsidian Office Hours, but then do it in a way that's also like searchable again. So I'm in the midst of trying to figure that out. But in the midst of trying to implement this new format, let's go and take a look at what we have as far as questions. So the first one that's come up actually a fair bit is that one of the things I do a lot is I use a base note in order to actually basically start off notes and with templates rather than inserting them directly. And so people who have seen that, they're like, oh, how does this whole thing work? So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So if we take a look at, I believe it's the templater plugin here. So the templater plugin from Obsidian is the key bit to this. So actually for those sort of watching this for the first time and you're new, then I definitely want to make sure you get all the things you need from this regard. Obsidian Templater is, I would argue, or not even argue, I think statistically, it's one of the most popular plugins within the ecosystem because it basically allows you to do exactly what it says it does, which is allows you to do some pretty advanced stuff with templates so that your notes can be basically auto-filled out with things that much faster. And so I think we've done a bit of discussion around Templater in past streams, but in the meantime, just know that the documentation is quite good on this regard, and over time we'll do more sort of resources on that. But within the Templater plugin, once you've installed it, the key thing here is that you're going to use this base note concept, right? So the configuration here is the empty file template. And basically, this is what it says here, just as to make sure in case anyone's having trouble reading, is that it will automatically apply whatever templates in there to new files as they're created. And so this is very cool because what this basically means is that you can start to do some conditionals. And that's what I sort of finally unlocked recently with base notes. So let me go ahead and open up my base note right here so that people can see. And this is probably going to look pretty redonkulous for those who are sort of new to the templating system, because what we have here actually is really just a giant block of JavaScript. And if you're thinking like, oh, well, I'm not really a programmer, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with this. The nice thing about this is that at least, most of this honestly is just copying and pasting the conditional as far as like whether or not a title includes like this string. So we're not doing anything actually terribly complicated from a programming perspective. We're not doing like array mutations or anything. This is really just if the note title contains this marker, include this template, right? I actually do try to keep it as simple as humanly possible. And as a result, it kind of scales well and it's easy to maintain. So in that regard, when we're taking a look at the base note here, this is where we can start thinking about things where over time you start to basically come up with scenarios that are quite common. So for example, one of the things I have here is like a daily note, right? And so the daily note here not only will go ahead and create it, but it will move it into a specific folder so that all my daily notes are kept together and it's easier to kind of hide them all away, especially when I'm doing queries on notes and that kind of thing. And then other things you can do, for example, are making sure that whether or not the title starts with a certain string. So a lot of my notes, especially as I've developed schemas around them, such as music lessons and that kind of thing, that I wanted to actually basically start with that base template. And so one that I've actually, believe it or not, been procrastinating on for no reason at all is that whenever I create a Build with Ben or an Obsidian Office Hour note, I actually have to manually like insert the template. So to show you what I mean, let's say for Build with Ben next week, right? I think we're on episode 18. Typically what I would do is I would go Build with Ben episode 18, right? So there are no notes that exist with this name. And so therefore I'm going to hit Command Enter to create a new one in a new tab. And what you'll see is that it actually starts with a blank note that's very generic. So the way we get to the generic note is that at the very bottom, this is like the most generic note we have, which is the starter note page template. And so to show you what that looks like, this is the starter note page template right here. I kept it quite simple as far as like very basic front matter, the title, the cursor, and then a simple like type attribute to the note, which is fairly common for me to use. So the problem with this is that this is part of my, call it live stream template. And so I actually have a live stream template right here that basically tries to get me to queue like things that I try to do for every stream every single time. The only problem is that this needs to be customized according to whether or not it's going to be a Build with Ben or an Obsidian Office Hour. So one of the things we can do is that we could write like a whole JavaScript function to like make sure everything's the same and insert it at a certain place. But to be honest, I think what I would rather do, honestly, is just keep things as simple as possible, right? It's going to be a little bit repetitive from a programming perspective. But again, we're not doing it so often that we really need to script it or automate it. So in this case, right, going with the base note concept, we know that every time I create a Build with Ben note, that is going to start with Build with Ben. That's like very consistent that I do every single time. And the nice thing about this also is that I'm the one who gets to decide how my brain works. So if your brain, for example, would prefer to say live stream Build with Ben, then that's something that you can do instead. You can be like, does the string contain like Build with Ben instead? But for me, I always start with Build with Ben. And so also just as a little bit of a sanity check for me as well, I try to do everything alphabetically. So here we go. There we go. So now it's Build with Ben. This makes it easier to just sort of find the things that I want to do. And so I don't want to have it include. I want to actually make sure that it starts with a certain string. And so this is where I want to make sure it starts with Build with Ben. And then to be honest, I just realized sometimes I have the Build with Ben can like have other things attributed to it. So if I'm like Build with Ben website, right? I don't want it to necessarily actually kick off with the live stream template. That would actually be a mistake. So I'm actually going to go one step further and say Build with Ben parentheses E, because this means that it's a Build with Ben episode that I'm actually trying to create. So actually what I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to just even add an addendum here. Build with Ben episode notes. Because in the future, I might have other types of build with Ben, especially if like the series gets bigger or there's other things to basically like link with it. And so now what I can do here is I could just include the live stream, right? But I actually really should start considering basically creating a fork of the live stream, because I'm realizing the things I want to do for Obsidian Office Hours are quite different from the ones I do with Build with Ben. So for now, again, repetition is okay, especially as a developer. We've been so ingrained with the do not repeat yourself principle, right? Which is the dry principle. And I think that principle is a bit overrated, and a little bit of repetition never hurt anyone. So let's go ahead and actually create a new template. So I'm going to call it Build with Ben episode. And then this will be a page template right here. And so I'm going to create this new note. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this file to my templates folder. So I believe, oh, I still have all these folders I need to get rid of. But anyways, this will be in my templates folder. So to make sure that this works, let me see. Is there a page build with Ben episode page template? Excellent. Let's copy over everything in the Twitch live stream one. And so you can see here, there's a lot of different things as far as pieces to do. I can customize all this stuff later. That's what's going to be nice about this. And the key thing, though, that I want to make sure I do is that for the series, for the data attribute, when I query in the future, I actually want to make sure that these are automatically attached to the Build with Ben series. So basically, they're always tagged with the correct one. And so with that, I think I can close this. And so Build with Ben here, still empty. That's totally fine. And we're going to go ahead and inside of here, we're going to, oh, good. You know that I brought this up recently. We'll include the Build with Ben episode page template. So if we try this again, right, and let's go ahead and insert the base note, you'll see that it actually detected correctly that our file title was Build with Ben, parentheses E, because that's my personal signature for saying that it's an episode. It's properly populated the Build with Ben. It's done all the tagging exactly as I would want. And then, it has like the date here. The date here would be inaccurate in this case because I have gone ahead and like basically said that like whenever you create the note, just do the current date, which is within which is, I am stumbling over my words. Basically, timestamp the date to now. I will personally modify it if it's for like a future date. So in this case, for example, this is for Tuesday. And so Tuesday would really need to be the 12th, for example. So I would just go ahead and update that and say this is scheduled for the 12th. And then, but typically, like, I found that, for example, I tend to create my agendas like the day of this moment. But if in the future I had a really good habit where I was creating the note every Monday, then you can do things, for example, like date now, and you can like basically do calculations like adding a day and that kind of stuff. So you can do things to help yourself automate a little bit. But for me, this is already kind of a big win in that regard. So, okay, so now we have the Build with Ben series. Let's just create one more for practice sake. And so, I see here, Jimena has a great question. Is this template on Obsidian boilerplate? Let's check real quick. So for those who don't know, I do have an Obsidian boilerplate. It's not called the starter kit anymore. There you go, Ben's Obsidian boilerplate. So if I look at templates, oh, I don't think my base note is in here. So let's fix that real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and let's do a little bit of coding. So here we go. Inside of here, where's my Obsidian boilerplate? There we go. All right. So, oh, apparently I have changes locally here. Oh, dear Lord. I don't know what happened to this. I'm just going to chuck all this out, clean it up. All right. So what I need to do here is we need to actually no, I'm going to open this in VS Code. I think that'll be the easiest. So in our notes, daily notes, we have a template section. I am just going to create a base note page template.md. And then having that now, I'll just copy this over into here, save it. Ooh, don't format. Save without formatting. Great. And now let's go and push that up. git commit feature add base note template. Boom. All right. There you go. So now I can confidently say that, yes, the base note now is on the Obsidian boilerplate. And in fact, actually what I should do is I'll make sure to actually link it inside of the show notes when this is uploaded. Oh, that is so ugly. Okay, good. At least when it's raw, it's correct, because I was about to throw a fit. Okay, so let me drop this inside of the episode 16. All right, excellent. All right. So just to wrap up the exercise one more time, let's go ahead and see how we might do this again with like the Obsidian Office Hours, for example. So in this case, once again, I'd like to do things alphabetically. So M, N, O. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the music lesson one. And so once again, rather than starts with, for example, we could do a simple, does the title like include, and then I could say Obsidian Office Hours E like this. Because similarly, I also do the E format, as you might imagine, for episode. And so includes will do something a little bit different from like a testing perspective. Let me make sure I did that right. Read, oh wait, hold up. Title. Oh, it does includes. Okay, I was like, oh no. I wasn't sure for a second if I used the right one, because there's file include versus includes. So we are here. We are talking about Obsidian Office Hours episode notes. And so when you do includes, the main difference here now is that, let me show you. So now let's go ahead, and my live stream template honestly now doesn't really need to be genericized, because it's not like my Twitch live stream is like the base template that these other two are derived from. That would be, I think, what we would have in a perfect world. But I'm pretty sure what I would need to do that is you need to write basically a function, a JavaScript function inside a templater that like passes a template that then passes the value to a specific place. And while I'm sure that's possible, that is a lot of work. And again, I think the key thing to keeping anything easy to maintain a lot of times is simplicity. And for the most part, maintaining two templates that I don't really modify that often, that level of automation doesn't yield much for me personally, so I won't be pursuing that. So that said, we're going to go ahead and just actually rename this particular one Obsidian Office Hours page template. And then now that we have that, the nice thing about here that also when you're working within the template is that because you're in Obsidian, you still get Office Hours oh, it didn't like it. Hours page. Oh, it did not like that. Why doesn't it like that? Move to file to folder templates. Yep. Please include Obsidian Office Hours. Yes. No match found. This is a little weird. Obsidian Office Hours page. Wait, live stream. Oh, here we go. Wait. Nope. Did it just... What happened to my page template? Hang on a sec. Let's go ahead and find out. That was kind of funky. So if we go inside of templates, base note. Yeah, live stream is gone. Oh, here we go. Obsidian. I have a typo. That's one thing I do hope that Obsidian gets a little bit better at. I know it's a little bit tricky to do, but fuzzy searching would be super helpful so that I don't feel silly when it comes to this kind of stuff. Okay, now that we have this, let's now go back. Inside of our base note for our Obsidian, this thing is now going to be Obsidian Office Hours. And then we're just going to page template. There we go. Excellent. Okay. So now that we have this set up, again, there's a difference now because includes means that it can be anywhere in the string. So if I create a new note in this case, and so let's call it like prefix Obsidian Office Hours with E, and then like I'm like 18, for example, you'll see that it actually detects it correctly as far as like, oh yeah, this title contains that pattern that you gave me. But for me personally, I don't want that. Just in case, like, I don't know, I'm writing a note that's like, review for Obsidian Office Hours episode 18, right? That's not what I personally would want, because I may refer to it that way. So this is why, for me, at least for the most part, it's usually more reliable when it comes to naming schemas to be consistent about either a starting marker or an ending marker. So in other words, like if you imagine that, I don't know, all of my episodes for live streams have the same template, but they might have different series in front of them. So I, as I said, Build with Ben, Obsidian Office Hours. Then you might say like, oh, I want to check to make sure that it always ends with like this parentheses E, and then always use this like TV show format. And so that's another way you could do that if you're like, if the starting thing is always changing. So that said, for me, I'm going to be updating this to starts with. That's actually the preferred for me. So now if I delete, so let me copy this file name real quick. I'm going to delete the file. And then let's go ahead and open up this prefix Obsidian Office Hours again. And then this time it works exactly as expected, which is that now that you don't have anything here, sorry, it's not starting with it, it's good. And then let's go ahead and delete now. And then if we do not the prefix, but we just do Obsidian Office Hours episode 18, boom, everything works as expected. Although I just realized I do need to modify this template real quick because the Obsidian Office Hours page template needs to actually link to the right series. So Obsidian Office Hours series. There we go. Okay. Excellent. All right. With that, we've talked about a base note, and we've talked about Obsidian base notes. And so in the time that we have left, what I'd like to cover is dealing with custom templates. And this is something that actually came up recently when I was talking in the, actually, it's Cassidy's Discord, actually, regarding the idea of custom scripts. Now, this is connected to the base notes question in the sense that like it still uses the templater plugin, because right now the template plugin is really powerful in terms of its flexibility. And don't get me wrong, it can be very intimidating, but hopefully when you have a starting point for how you might want to solve certain problems, it will give you enough to sort of really get that maximum benefit without getting into the weeds. But that said, I want to go ahead and show you custom template scripts. That way, in case people are wondering in the future how that really works. So basically, the custom templating scripts are for people who are looking to basically do JavaScript manipulations on strings and do a lot more calculations and stuff before like they sort of do a standard template. So as we can just as a quick review, as we just saw, the Obsidian Office Hours page template, for example, is mostly Markdown with a little bit of like a couple of variables that get populated, but otherwise it's fairly tame in that regard. But what if, for example, you have something where you always paste in a certain snippet and you want it to format a certain way? Well, inside of here, for me personally, I keep all of my scripts in a folder aptly named scripts. And so we can see here that here is a real world example. So it's actually opening the JS file in the JavaScript file inside of VS Code. So what you saw there wasn't Obsidian freaking out. It was actually just moving me over to an actual code editor instead. So what we see here inside of the format Peloton class is that when you basically pass in the description, it will go ahead and do a bunch of things. So for me, like what I basically do is I actually get the file name. That's what I get out of this. Because one of the things I found at one point when I was trying to log Peloton classes is that the string was incredibly annoying to deal with. So I wonder, let me see if I can pull up an example real quick. Let me do this real quick. So if I Peloton, that's not what I wanted. Peloton class, here we go. For the sake of not embarrassing myself, I'm just gonna log into Peloton real quick. I don't know if there's anything, honestly, I basically don't care for the most part. I just want to make sure that nothing accidentally shows up that I'm not supposed to show, because that will be tricky to do later. Okay, so let's say, I think this will count. All right, this is good enough. Okay, I'll show you what I mean. All right, so this is good. All right. What you see here is that whenever I take a class with Peloton, for example, I want to be able to, at least my goal was to take a note on it. And so what I found myself doing a lot with the scripting was that, so let's say right now in the notes, I'm like, took Peloton class. And then, so unfortunately, due to the way that like the parsing of Peloton and I don't know, it was, the API was a little bit weird. The fastest thing for me to do was to literally copy and paste the string that I saw here in here, because it gave me all the information I needed in terms of like the title of it, the date, and as well as like who taught it and etc. But what I wanted to be able to do though was I found myself formatting it constantly. So I think if I look at any of my, do I have anything with Adrian Williams? So yeah, you can see here actually 20-minute chest and back strength with Adrian Williams from, you know, Thursday, November 19th at 9:10 a.m. because they can do multiple work. Like, so I had like a whole thing I came up with. And so as a result, what you end up being able to do is if I insert my Peloton class entry, let me go ahead and I didn't want it to actually do it immediately. So you'll see here what this script allows me to do is to call my own like JavaScript function basically. So tp.user.format Peloton class. I could drop in this snippet from, I think I needed to like do it like this. I think, there you go, that looks better. So then from here, what it does is I can then replace the templates in the active file. And then what you saw is that it actually switched it into the format that I wanted it to be. So just as a quick, oh yeah, that's right. The script is over here. I like basically found, because I knew it was so consistent, I was like, I split it by the line. I grabbed a certain, I knew it was going to split by this. I knew it was going to split by this. And so as a result, I got the ability to then say, oh, well, I formatted the string the way I wanted to. And now my Peloton classes have like a very consistent format, which, again, I think it was just more of a, well, let's just say this was one of the things that was worth automating because I spent a lot of time just trying to format the file name. And then from here, like honestly, what I probably would need to do is actually prefix it with Peloton. And then that way the Peloton will kick off a template. And that I think is a very good use of like automation time. So yeah, so wanted to share that with y'all. And so basically, yep, the scripts are in here. And if you're wondering where that is inside of Templater, that is actually right here under script files folder location. Basically, all these JavaScript files will be loaded as the common.js modules, and then you can use them at tp.user. So you can see here, just as a quick reminder, that here is my function format Peloton class, and then I just do a module export. So this is more of the ES5 syntax as far as exporting rather than a standard ES6. But basically, you just export the one function, and then you pass in whatever it is, and it works, which is really nice. So yeah, that is scripting at a high level. So today I actually am running a little bit short on time, so I will save the dealing with note-taking paradigms for the next one, because one of the things I'd love to do more as well as part of Obsidian Office Hours is to just chat philosophy things with y'all and just get your take on things. And so I think the format where I'm starting to see with Obsidian Office Hours is like updates and like picks of the week. And then we'll go into like some, like maybe one or two FAQ questions so that can start to sort of build up over time, especially now that I'm getting better at uploading them to YouTube. People can build up, like people can refer to those as a knowledge base. But then after that, I'd love to do some live note taking and that kind of stuff. But it's been pretty tricky. Now, there is a question though. We do have time for one question that we have in the chat, which is from Cassidy here. And so the question here is, you know how some folks have a brag docs of people giving you compliments and feedback and praises? Do I have one of those? Yeah, so what those are called like various things over the years, and I believe, oh gosh, am I gonna embarrass myself with this? This is a live stream. Did I call them awesome result reports? Awesome reports? Brag. No. Oh, what did I do instead? I think, okay, so one, let me recap. The idea behind brag dots, for those who are new about it, basically says, what are your wins? Like when someone gives you a compliment, oh, you know what, I do know, I know I can at least show this. So let me just make sure. that drop. I think I put it in Dropbox. Is it my Yay folder? Let me just make sure. Sorry, I just want to make sure. Once again, have to be careful what shows up. Okay, here we go. So here is a Dropbox folder that I have within within Dropbox, and all it is screenshots of people who have said nice things that I kind of wanted to remember. And so here's one I think that would probably be safe. And so here's someone who had said that the front-end masters workshop that I gave was something that they really enjoyed. And so at the time I was super insecure. And so this was a really nice win to see someone without my prompting, that wasn't social media or anything, just like giving compliments on the workshop that I had taught. So I do have this. However, to Cassidy's points, I think it's great to have this in Obsidian form. So what I really should do is migrate this stuff in, because there are different people that give you the wins. But more importantly, I do think I actually did try to prototype this at one point. And if we go into my search and I do wins, I think this is why I started doing this. So this is less of like a yay and like brag, but I would say I'm starting to also come to a conclusion that like there are things worth noting that you've accomplished. There are things worth noting that are more significant milestones. And then there are worth things that are like bragging. And so I do think one of the things that you might want to start doing then, honestly, what I would recommend is when you're going into note, you know what, heck, let's show this in real time. I think I have time. All right, let's do this. So taking that yay, taking that one example of the yay, the Fem workshop, front-end masters, that's what I call it. Front-end masters. So I would say like front-end masters Discord comment, for example. Let's just call it really simple. So I'm going to paste, let me drag it over. Let me see if this works. Can I drag it in here? Great. So you see that the comment here, and it's like, it's really nice. So what I can do is I can say, I can tag it with front-end masters so that I know that this is what the brag was related to. But honestly, I'm just going to call it a brag. And so what this means now is that in the future, I can actually go and collect all my brags together with something like data view, or I can like start sorting them by date. And so this is basically what I would do. I would take screenshots, throw them into Discord, maybe tag any people that might be related to the thing, and then just leave it at that. Data view can take care of the rest as far as doing brags and that kind of stuff. Ben's brag dashboard. I will say I get a little bit uncomfortable sometimes with compliments, but I think, to be honest, I think all of us, we haven't really been taught to deal with compliments that well, I feel like. Well, with that said, thanks so much everyone for coming. Sorry that the session had to be short today. It's been fun, everyone. I will talk to you all later. Bye.